This is Amber and Ashley Parker. These are 16-year-old identical twins standing in court today for the murder of their parents. On the night of December 14, 2019, they attacked their mother and father in their sleep with kitchen knives. 47 stab wounds total. The prosecutor told the court this murder was carefully planned. This wasn't some sudden emotional outburst. This was cold-blooded, calculated murder. The judge asked, "Count 1, murder of Robert Parker. How do you plead?" Amber said, "Guilty, Your Honor." Ashley also pled guilty. Both sisters stared straight ahead, not looking at each other, as if nothing had happened. But something terrible had happened, and now the full truth was coming out. The Parker family looked perfect from the outside. Robert Parker was a successful businessman. Linda Parker was a stay-at-home mom, 2 beautiful daughters, big house in suburban Florida. Neighbors said they were the ideal American family. But the inside story was completely different. The investigation revealed that Robert Parker had a serious drinking problem. He'd come home drunk at night and get violent with Linda. Neighbors had called the police multiple times for domestic violence reports. And these twins, they witnessed everything that happened in that house. Every night, every fight, every assault. School counselor Mrs. Rebecca Davis testified in court. She said Amber told her back in 2018 that their dad was violent. "I reported it to CPS. There was an investigation, but nothing happened. Case was closed." Robert Parker was very convincing. He convinced investigators everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. December 14th, 2019. This was the night everything ended. The twins' plan was simple: wait until the parents fall asleep, lock their bedroom door from outside, and finish it. Crime scene photos show there was a struggle in the room. Robert Parker had tried to get out of bed. There were defensive wounds on his hands. Linda Parker was still in bed, blood on the pillow. Medical examiner Dr. Stephen Walsh explained in court, Robert Parker had 28 stab wounds. Chest, neck, face. Linda Parker had 19 stab wounds, mostly in the chest and abdomen area. Estimated time of death was between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. The 911 call came from Amber at 7:15 in the morning. In the recording, she's crying, telling the operator, "Please help, someone killed my parents, there's blood everywhere, please send help." But she was acting very well. When police arrived at the scene, both twins were sitting on the front lawn, wrapped in blankets, crying, looking shocked. Detective Marcus Johnson started the interrogation. Initially, both were giving a consistent story. They said they heard noises at night, went to the bedroom, door was locked from inside, they broke it down, found parents dead, called 911. But something didn't feel right to the detective. Johnson told me in an interview later, "Look, I've been doing this job for 23 years. You can tell when someone's lying. Their story was too perfect, too rehearsed, and there were details that didn't add up." First red flag: there was no forced entry, no signs of a break-in, nothing was stolen. If this was a robbery gone wrong, why didn't the intruder take anything? Second red flag: the bedroom door was locked from the outside, not inside. The twins said they broke it down, but forensics showed the lock was engaged from the hallway side. Third red flag: blood spatter analysis. There were tiny blood droplets on both girls' pajamas, not the kind you get from discovering a body, the kind you get from being present during the attack. After 6 hours of interrogation, Amber cracked first. She asked for a lawyer but then started talking anyway. She said, "We couldn't take it anymore. He was going to kill Mom one day. We had to stop him." Ashley was in a separate interrogation room. When detectives told her that Amber had confessed, she broke down completely. She said, "It was all my idea. I planned everything. Amber just helped me. Don't blame her." But that wasn't true. Phone records showed both twins had been researching how to get away with murder and how to stage a break-in for weeks. They'd watched crime documentaries, read true crime forums. They knew exactly what they were doing. Detective Johnson said in their phones, "We found a shared note. It was titled The Plan. It had step-by-step instructions, what time to wait until, which knives to use, how to make it look like a robbery, how to act when police arrive." They'd thought of everything. Except they hadn't thought about forensic evidence. They hadn't thought about blood spatter. They hadn't thought about how their story would fall apart under questioning. The trial was emotional. The prosecution painted the twins as cold, calculating killers who murdered their parents in their sleep. The defense argued these were abused children who snapped after years of trauma. Prosecutor Amanda Stevens told the jury, yes, there was abuse in this home. That's tragic. But that doesn't give anyone the right to commit murder. These girls had options. They could have called the police. They could have told teachers. They could have run away. Instead, they chose to kill their parents while they slept. That's not self-defense. That's murder. The defense attorney Michael Rodriguez argued these girls lived in hell. Robert Parker was a monster. He beat their mother regularly. He threatened them. They were terrified. They felt trapped. This was an act of desperation, not premeditated murder. But the evidence was overwhelming. The shared note titled The Plan, the internet search history, the timeline of events, the forensic evidence, everything pointed to premeditated murder. Several witnesses testified about the abuse in the Parker household. Neighbors heard screaming regularly. Teachers noticed bruises on Linda Parker. Ashley's English teacher said she wrote an essay about escaping a nightmare that was clearly about her home life. Dr. Patricia Morrison, a psychologist who evaluated the twins, testified about their mental state. She said both girls suffered from severe PTSD. They had anxiety, depression, and showed signs of long-term trauma. But she also said they understood right from wrong. They knew what they were planning was murder. Robert Parker's brother, Thomas Parker, testified for the prosecution. He said his brother had his problems, but he wasn't a monster. He loved his daughters. He was trying to get sober. These girls didn't give him a chance. But Linda Parker's sister, Jennifer Walsh, testified for the defense. She said Linda had called her many times crying, saying Robert had hurt her again. Jennifer had begged Linda to leave him, but Linda was scared. She had no job, no money, nowhere to go. The most damning evidence came from the twins' own words. Recorded jail calls between Amber and Ashley were played in court. In one call, Amber said, "I can't believe we actually did it." Ashley responded, "We had to. It was him or us." In another call, they discussed their defense strategy. Ashley said, "Just keep saying we were scared for our lives." Amber agreed, saying the abuse story is our only chance. The prosecution argued this showed no remorse. These girls were still manipulating the situation, trying to get away with murder. Text messages between the twins from before the murder were also presented. 1 week before, Ashley texted Amber, "Next Saturday, are you ready?" Amber replied, "I'm ready, no more pain." 3 days before the murder, Amber texted, "Did you get the gloves?" Ashley responded, "Yes, and bleach." The day before the murder, Ashley sent a final text, "Tomorrow night, I love you, sis." Amber replied, "I love you too, we can do this." The trial lasted 4 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days. The verdict came back, guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. When the verdict was read, both twins started crying. Their grandmother, who was sitting in the courtroom, collapsed. She had to be taken out by paramedics. Now came the sentencing phase. Because the twins were juveniles at the time of the murder, they couldn't receive the death penalty or automatic life without parole. But the prosecutor was asking for the maximum sentence allowed. Before sentencing, both twins were allowed to make statements. Amber went first. She stood up crying and said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did. I think about Mom and Dad every day. I see their faces every time I close my eyes. I know sorry isn't enough. I know nothing I say can bring them back. I just want everyone to know that we loved them. Even Dad, we loved him. We were just so scared." Ashley's statement was similar. She said, "We made a terrible choice. The worst choice anyone could make. We took the people who gave us life. I wish I could go back and change everything. I wish I had been brave enough to ask for help instead. I deserve whatever punishment the court gives me." The judge, Honorable Patricia Henderson, took a long pause before speaking. She said, "I've reviewed all the evidence in this case. I've read the psychological evaluations. I've listened to testimony about the abuse you suffered, and I believe that abuse was real. I believe you were scared. I believe you felt trapped. But I also believe you had choices. You could have reached out to teachers, counselors, relatives, police. Instead, you planned and executed a murder. You attacked your parents while they slept, unable to defend themselves. You stabbed your mother 19 times. You stabbed your father 28 times. This was not a momentary act of panic. This was sustained, brutal violence. The law requires me to consider your age and the circumstances. But the law also requires me to consider the severity of this crime. 2 people are dead, 2 lives were taken, and while you may have been victims yourselves, you became perpetrators of the worst crime possible. Amber Parker, on count 1, first-degree murder of Robert Parker, I sentence you to 40 years in state prison. On count 2, first-degree murder of Linda Parker, I sentence you to 40 years in state prison. These sentences will run concurrently. You will be eligible for parole after serving 30 years. Ashley Parker, the judge continued, on count 1, first-degree murder of Robert Parker, I sentence you to 40 years in state prison. On count 2, first-degree murder of Linda Parker, I sentence you to 40 years in state prison. These sentences will also run concurrently. You will be eligible for parole after serving 30 years. Both twins will serve their sentences in separate facilities. The judge said, given the nature of your relationship and how you planned this crime together, it's in the best interest of your rehabilitation that you serve your time apart. As the bailiffs moved to take them away, Amber and Ashley looked at each other for the first time since the verdict. Both were crying. Ashley mouthed, "I love you," and Amber nodded. Then they were led away in handcuffs in opposite directions. Their grandmother, Margaret Walsh, spoke to reporters outside the courthouse. She said those girls have already lost their parents. Now they're losing their freedom, their youth, everything. This whole situation is just tragic. There are no winners here. Everyone lost. The case sparked nationwide debate about domestic violence, child abuse, and the justice system. Some people believed the twins deserved the harsh sentence. Others felt they were victims who should have received leniency. Dr. Sarah Chen, a criminologist who studied the case, said this case highlights the complicated intersection of victimhood and criminal responsibility. Yes, these girls were abused, but does abuse justify murder? The law says no. Society says no, but it's not that simple when you're living in that situation, especially as a child. Domestic violence advocate Maria Rodriguez used this case to push for better reporting systems. She said if CPS had done a proper investigation when the first report came in, maybe these deaths could have been prevented. Maybe Linda Parker would still be alive. Maybe these girls wouldn't be in prison. But others argued the twins had options. Robert Parker's lawyer, who represented his estate, said those girls committed cold-blooded murder. They planned it for weeks. They could have called 911 any night their father was violent. They could have told someone. Instead, they chose murder. This case wasn't the only one that year involving teenage killers. Just 4 months later, another case would shock the nation even more. This is Daniel Morrison. He's 15 years old, and he just shot and killed 4 of his classmates at Jefferson High School in Arizona. The date was April 23, 2020. It was a Tuesday morning, third period. Daniel walked into his algebra class with his father's gun. He didn't say anything. He just started shooting. Teacher Mrs. Susan Miller was hit first. She died shielding 2 students. Student Jake Peterson, 16, was killed trying to tackle Daniel. Student Emily Rodriguez, 15, was shot while running toward the door. Student Chris Taylor, 14, was hiding under a desk when he was shot. 11 other students were injured. The shooting lasted 4 minutes before school security officer Paul Jackson tackled Daniel and disarmed him. Daniel didn't resist. He dropped the gun, he put his hands up, and he said, "I'm sorry." The aftermath was chaos. Parents rushing to the school, ambulances everywhere, news helicopters overhead, students being evacuated with their hands up. It looked like a war zone. Daniel Morrison was arrested at the scene. When police searched his backpack, they found 3 more loaded magazines and a list of names. Everyone on that list was a student or teacher at Jefferson High. The investigation revealed Daniel had been planning this for months. He'd written a manifesto, posted videos online, and told several classmates what he was going to do, but nobody reported it. Either they didn't believe him or they didn't want to get involved. Daniel's home life painted a disturbing picture. His parents had divorced when he was 12. His father, a military veteran, had PTSD and kept multiple firearms in the house, poorly secured. Daniel had easy access to weapons. At school, Daniel was bullied constantly. Students called him weird, creepy, a loner. He had no friends. He ate lunch alone every day. Teachers described him as quiet, withdrawn, troubled. School counselor Mr. Thomas Wright testified he'd met with Daniel several times. Daniel talked about feeling isolated, angry, hopeless. Wright had recommended therapy. Daniel's father refused, saying his son just needed to toughen up. 3 months before the shooting, Daniel posted on social media, "They'll all pay, watch." Nobody reported it. 2 months before, he posted a picture of himself holding a gun with the caption, "Soon." Still, nobody reported it. 1 week before, he told a classmate, "I'm going to make them remember my name." The classmate thought he was joking. The night before the shooting, Daniel posted a video saying goodbye to his mother. He said, "Mom, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. I love you. Please forgive me." His mother didn't see it until after the shooting. Prosecutor Elizabeth Martin argued Daniel Morrison planned and executed a mass murder. She said this wasn't a cry for help. This was terrorism. He wanted to kill as many people as possible. The only reason more people didn't die is because Officer Jackson stopped him. The defense attorney James Sullivan argued Daniel was a deeply troubled child who fell through the cracks of every system designed to help him. He was bullied, isolated, ignored. He asked for help and nobody listened. This tragedy could have been prevented. Sullivan presented evidence of Daniel's mental state. Multiple psychiatrists diagnosed him with severe depression, anxiety, and showed signs of psychosis. He was hearing voices telling him to hurt people. He was having violent fantasies. He was suicidal. But the prosecution argued mental illness doesn't excuse murder. Thousands of people suffer from mental illness and don't commit mass shootings. Daniel Morrison made a choice, a terrible, evil choice. Victim impact statements were devastating. Jake Peterson's mother couldn't even speak. She just cried holding her son's photo. Emily Rodriguez's father said, "You took my baby girl. She was 15 years old. She wanted to be a doctor. Now she's gone because of you." Mrs. Miller's husband, a retired teacher himself, said, "My wife died a hero. She saved lives that day, and you're the coward who took her from us. I hope you rot in prison." Daniel pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 11 counts of attempted murder. He showed no emotion during the proceedings except when his mother testified. Then he cried. Daniel's mother, Patricia Morrison, said through tears, "I failed my son. I should have seen the signs. I should have done more. I apologize to every family affected by this. I lost my son too. The Daniel I knew died that day along with those beautiful children." At sentencing, Daniel was allowed to speak. He stood up, looked at the families, and said, "I know sorry means nothing. I know I destroyed your lives. I destroyed my own life. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. All I can say is I wish I could take it back. I wish I had asked for help instead. I wish I had made different choices." The judge, Honorable Michael Torres, said, "Daniel Morrison, you are 15 years old. Under the law, I cannot sentence you to death or life without parole, but I can sentence you to a very long time in prison. On each count of first-degree murder, I sentence you to life in prison. These sentences will run consecutively. You will be eligible for parole after serving 60 years minimum." That means Daniel Morrison, now 15, won't be eligible for parole until he's 75 years old. He will spend his entire youth, his entire adulthood, behind bars. As he was led away, he looked back at his mother one last time. She was sobbing uncontrollably. He mouthed, "I'm sorry," and then disappeared through the courtroom doors. The Jefferson High School shooting led to major changes in school security, mental health resources, and gun storage laws in Arizona. But for the families of the victims, no law can bring their children back. Emily Rodriguez's mother started a foundation in her daughter's name focusing on teen mental health awareness. Jake Peterson's parents became advocates for stricter gun control laws. Mrs. Miller was posthumously awarded the Medal of Valor for her heroic actions. Daniel Morrison is currently serving his sentence at a juvenile facility. When he turns 18, he'll be transferred to an adult prison. According to prison officials, he spends most of his time in solitary confinement for his own protection. Other inmates know who he is and what he did. These cases, the Parker twins and Daniel Morrison, represent a disturbing trend in America. Teenage killers, kids who commit unspeakable acts of violence. What drives a child to murder? Is it abuse, mental illness, bullying, access to weapons? Is it all of the above? Experts disagree. Dr. Michael Stevens, a forensic psychologist, says most teenage killers have several risk factors: trauma, mental illness, social isolation, access to violence, and a triggering event. But he's quick to point out that most kids who experience these things don't become killers. Something else has to be there: a lack of empathy, a disconnect from consequences, an inability to see another way out. The justice system struggles with how to handle these cases. These are children. Their brains aren't fully developed. They're capable of change, rehabilitation, but they've also committed horrific crimes. They've taken lives. How do you balance rehabilitation with justice? Some countries like Norway focus heavily on rehabilitation, even for serious crimes committed by minors. Offenders receive extensive therapy, education, and support. The maximum sentence for juveniles is 21 years regardless of the crime. But in America, the focus is more on punishment. Juvenile offenders can be tried as adults for serious crimes. They can receive life sentences. Some states even allow juveniles to be sentenced to life without parole, though recent Supreme Court rulings have limited this. So what's the answer? How do we prevent these tragedies? How do we help troubled kids before they become killers? There's no simple solution. Better mental health services, stronger domestic violence intervention, anti-bullying programs, gun safety laws, better training for teachers and counselors to recognize warning signs, more resources for families in crisis. But ultimately, it comes down to paying attention, listening to kids when they ask for help, taking threats seriously, not dismissing warning signs, creating communities where no child feels so isolated, so hopeless, so full of rage that violence seems like the only option. The Parker twins are now 21 years old. They've served 5 years of their 40-year sentences. They won't be eligible for parole for another 25 years. By then, they'll be 46 years old. Their entire youth will have been spent behind bars. Daniel Morrison just turned 20. He has 55 more years until he's eligible for parole. When and if that day comes, he'll be an old man. The kids he killed will be forever young. These are the stories of children who became killers, and the lives forever changed by their choices.